Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session. I'm happy to introduce and bring you Experiential Learning in Digital Contexts, a case study. This will be presented to you by Professor Christoph Noblock of University of Education out of Ludwigsburg, Germany. Professor Noblock is a professor for religious education. His areas of research are competence development and teacher training, religious and cultural diversity in society and schools, early childhood education, diversity education, blended learning in the higher education sector, international collaboration, and recent presentations were for IMCL 2021 and Learning Ideas Conference in 2021. So welcome. I will be in the background watching for questions and chat, as well as helping keep track of our time. So welcome, Professor. I hand it over to you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you can hear me and you can see the presentation already on. I'm talking to you from the city of Tübingen. Good evening, everybody. It is actually almost night back here in the south of Germany. We have 9 p.m., so there's a bit of a time switch here. I would like to talk to you today about the experience in learning in digital contexts. We came up with a class which focused on these main traits, and we came up with a small case study evaluating the students' experiences and their reflections on the class and their learning experiences. So first of all, I would like to have a very short look on the times of transformation we're living in and what this means to learning, and especially what this could mean for digital learning, collaborative learning, and especially experiential learning.
Professor,
in the second step, yes.
Really quickly, we can't see full screen mode presentation of your slides. Instead, we're seeing it as notes. If you could please share.
Does this look better to you now?
No, it's still showing very small.
There you go. You got it.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. Thanks very much. This has been very helpful. I think I've been on my second point. I would like to have a look at the class we've been coming up with at the University of Education in Ludwigsburg, and then the small empirical case study we did. And then finally, of course, present the results we got and maybe an outlook with some questions. So just a very short look. We've been in this symposium, in this Congress for only a couple of hours, but we've already talked about diversity, we've talked about individualization, we talked about globalization, of course, we talked about digitalization. So some pedagogical concepts and ideas which might be able to give certain answers to these challenges. So concepts of socialization to see what is behind the learner, what is the background of the learner, and what can be learned from his backgrounds for the teaching and the classes we actually come up with. Then, of course, which sort of digital and collaborative formats are there in order to reach out to the learner, in order to get the learner's interest and to get students involved. Which sorts of collaboration, I would like to have a special look on international collaboration here, are possible and are maybe helpful. Then, this is the main focus, what can experience in learning produce for us as teachers in order to get the learners involved and to get them emotionally involved and to maybe create some sort of sustainable environment when it comes to learners. And then, because this is the topic behind the whole class, diversity sensitive approaches, which sort of go through all these possible answers to the challenges we've been facing on the left. So going these steps down again from the themes of diversity sensitive approaches, from diversity education, basically, we look at experience-based approaches. We collaborate internationally in this class with an Indian university, Dr. Ambedkar University in Delhi. So students and teachers are connected and they're working together in teams in order to create experience in projects. And of course, this has to be done in various digital and collaborative formats, as the students at this time, summer of 2021, were not able to meet too often due to the pandemic. And of course, they were not able to meet their peers in India. So concepts of socialization were basically transported through digital and collaborative formats. The whole class is part of the BWS Plus Foundation, the Baden-Württemberg Stiftung, which basically gave us the structure and the arrangement and the financial aid for this collaboration and this class. So let me have a short look at experiential learning. Probably one of the most original learning processes, which is deeply rooted in human nature. Once we experience things, once we do things, we basically learn out of it. This might be a limitation when it is done digitally, because how can experience be developed when we only interact digitally? So this is one of the main questions of the class and, of course, the empirical study we've been implementing. Within the last years, the ideas of experiential learning have been exposed to new opportunities. I just mentioned some of these by the development of digital learning environments. So the more we learn digitally, the less we learn through experience is one bias we often get to hear when we work in digital contexts. A bias which is not necessarily true, which can also be seen by our empirical study and the outcomes of it. So digital and project-based learning combined seem to have proven particularly relevant in these contexts, for they can offer tools for communication, for autonomous learning, for collaboration, and also shared learning between students and teachers. So let's have a short look at the course at LUE in 2021. First of all, we wanted to lay a theoretical foundation. Mostly it's about Dewey and the experience in learning, which experiences can be valuable for learning, Dewey and his ideas of laboratory schools. Then we had a short look on project-oriented learning to give the students kind of a framework. We've been focusing on Gudjons mostly. And then it was about the autonomous development and implementation of small-scale projects in the field of education. So students actually had to come up with an idea, they had to come up with a project, they had to group, and then they had to implement this project and to evaluate it. Finally, they had to present and discuss these projects in class, so we were coming back together at basically the last third of the semester. The digital project-based character of the course aims for the interconnection of students in Germany, but also in Germany and India, and they should be connected throughout their projects with their future work area, with future colleagues, and with future students, pupils, and so on, through project-oriented work in the field of education. The study we conducted analyzes and discusses the students' learning experiences. So this is the main focus of the study, experiences in project-based and digital sector settings in the higher education sector. The course design is blended. It's a fully digital, but of course it's a blended course design. Digital asynchronous parts were probably 50%. So students were able to go to a learning platform and to find presentations with audio commentary, to find podcasts we developed with experts just for this class. We had a selection of literature, of course, videos of professors and students working in empirical research, in project-based and digital learning, digital forums for interactive exchange of ideas, and so on. So this was the digital asynchronous part, which could be used by the students 24/7. And then we had synchronous sessions, which offered a guided discourse, the chance to reflect on the contents of the course, the chance to discuss the various projects, kind of a mentoring project, which were carried out by the students. So they could come to these synchronous sessions and get feedback on the processes of their projects, mostly based on students' questions and reports, group discussions, breakout rooms, etc. Just to give you a short idea what the course looked like over a semester, we have the theoretical framework, first couple of weeks, then the development of the projects, the implementation of projects, the presentation, and the reflection of these projects and the work by students and teachers jointly. Make it a bit more well visible. Just one example for a project. So some students in India and Germany came up with the idea to develop pen friendships between kindergartens and senior homes in the middle of the pandemic. So they reached out digitally to kindergartens and to senior homes, asking them if they were interested in this sort of project. And many were actually. So the first step was to actually work as the mailman or the mailwoman between the kindergarten and the senior home located in the same city mostly. The second step were audio messages. Then came video messages between elders and children back and forth. And when we had the chance to actually meet again in the summer of 21, the students arranged outside meetings at the kindergarten or mostly at the senior homes. So the elders and the children could actually meet. They could meet their pen friends face to face. What was very interesting in just this project, that it was a very sustainable project. So students still come up to me and tell me that they've been invited back to the kindergarten because they're now in round number 3. So new children, new elders, so the senior homes and the kindergartens kind of developed here a sustainable project, which was started by some of our students. So the qualitative study was also conducted fully digitally. It is intended to come up with a flexible research process to produce various findings and obviously to meet the COVID regulations of the time. So we were not able basically to meet all the students face to face. Well, we would have been able in some ways, but it didn't seem right at this time. So we came up with a fairly new method, semi-structured qualitative interviews carried out in an asynchronous digital way. So we decided not to meet the students synchronously digital, but we decided to send the questionnaires to them and to ask them to record an audio file, reading the questions out loud and then giving their answers. Some pros and cons. It encourages the students to reflect on their answers by allowing them to structure their ideas and responses beforehand. So we got very reflected, very well structured and deep answers. However, face-to-face interaction is missing. So we were not able to discuss certain answers, to come up with new questions, to deepen some topics. That was obviously not the case. But we got a lot of audio files and a lot of insights into the experiences which I want to share now. So first of all, our first category is personalization. Students told us they appreciated that they were able to customize their learning activities through the digital, mostly through the digital asynchronous parts of the class. So they were able to use these whenever they wanted. They experienced ownership over their learning arrangements. Of course, they were asked to come up with some assets and they had to hand in a paper here and there or answers here and there to questions we asked asynchronously, but they could do this whenever they wanted and they could work on this for quite some time. Also, they experienced control over their project because, and this is very much based on experience in learning, they were actually able to work in a field they were interested in. So the field of diversity education offers a lot of possibilities. All of the students found something they would actually wanted to work on. Project-oriented work offers intensive learning experience because the implementation of project is not just theoretical, but it's also practical, even though it was conducted mostly digitally. So students were able to reach certain goals by implementing individual projects. Learning processes seem to be more effective and bigger. And on top of that, one student tells us the learning is sustainable and interdisciplinary. So autonomous work and practical instruction, experiencing personalization seems to be one of the main traits of this class and of experiential learning in digital contexts altogether. Second, the second category is collaboration, experience of membership, because there always has been a group of people who work together with a common goal for a certain time. That seemed to be important to many of them, a common goal for a certain time. The whole social environment, whether it be friends, work, or family, different areas came together in the projects, schools, hobbies, families. So the life world of the learner actually found its way into the projects and into the learning experiences. Foundation for long-lasting relationships, as could be seen in the example I gave, the relationships on the collaboration between the kindergarten and the senior homes. For example, students experience that they're responsible for the implementation of a project, but also that their partners developed individual momentum which outlasted the project. So collaboration as a second main trait of experiential learning in digital contexts. Our third category, authenticity. Experience through fields and topics connected to the student's life world. Strong involvement in projects, incorporation of personal interest in projects. One student tells us, because one had so many possibilities, connect topics and subjects and add a pedagogical value. This connectedness is not limited to topics and subjects, but it also seems to play a role in the collaborations. Another student says, children and seniors discussed cultural and pedagogical themes, and the children developed new ideas about the concept of aging. So we have a lot of byproducts which seem to have been very impressive to the students, to the learners, which seem to have created a lot of experiences for them. Our fourth category, closely connected to the third one, empathy. Experience-based learning is emotional learning, and these emotions can also be transported in digital contexts. These emotions, one student tells us, affect one's awareness, and because of this, one perceives things differently. In the project, social learning, communication, and encounters taking place. This leads to a much broader learning. So students observe changes in the perspectives of participants through also digital encounters. They see that the pupils, the learners they work with, gain a deeper understanding for the position of the other by being involved in the various projects. Finally, last category, experiencing digital environments. Of course, we were especially interested in how the students experience the digital environments and the lack of face-to-face interaction. Now, looking at the positive effects first, easy to establish contacts, easy to schedule meetings quickly, easy to gather and share information online and simultaneously, especially when working in international groups. So the students who collaborated with peers in India, it was not possible, obviously, for them to meet face-to-face. So it was very easy to share information online. Many of them emphasized this. Then the chance to meet without using a car or public transport. This is especially important in the city of Stuttgart, where our university is located at. So Ludwigsburg is north of Stuttgart. Very strong traffic, very difficult to travel if you don't live close to campus. Then finally, time-saving aspect of digital communication, very easy, very fast. Students reported that they missed face-to-face interaction, especially when it came to working in the projects with not their student partners, but with the partners in the community, with schools, with kindergartens, and so on. So there was not much face-to-face interaction due to the pandemic. So this was certainly one of the setbacks. Also, a lack of unobstructed flow of information and communication, and problem with the use of certain materials, pictures, items don't transport via digital ways as good as they might transport when you have them actually on the table with the person you're working together with. Short outlook to end my presentation. You actually learn things when you do things. Many students emphasize this over and over again. Very high level of autonomous learning in this digital context. From a teacher's perspective, all the students delivered. There was no lack of commitment. They all did very well. They've been very keen on working in the asynchronous and in the synchronous modes. So kind of a sum up, but also many questions involved. In order to foster experiential learning in digital contexts, these kind of courses require a structure which enables students to find themes and develop projects individually, because this actually creates experience and interest, to share and discuss these ideas online, but if possible, also face-to-face, to establish contexts with other students and with the community, to develop shared knowledge through collaboration, so to share what they know and what they experience, and finally, to experience encounter. It is absolutely possible to work with this encounter and to establish this experience of encounter online, but if there's a possibility to do this face-to-face, it should also be offered. So it is the question of blending these face-to-face contacts and the digital platforms and the digital context. I think this is one of the main issues. We have to experiment with more and more in order to find classes which work very well for the students. And we have to focus, when asking these questions of blending, we have to focus on the learners, but we also have to focus on the teachers, and we have to focus on the communities or the partners involved. And finally, we have to focus on the content. So various potentials to constructively face and implement some of the transformative processes I've been talking about at the very beginning of my presentation. Certainly, experiential learning supports students in their ways of becoming autonomous experts in their chosen fields of education, and experiential learning can be done, of course, in digital contexts if we find a way of blending it correctly and if we use all different ways of digital contexts we have experiences with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Now I'd like to open up for questions. We've got a little bit over 5 minutes in order to answer questions. So first, I'll turn it over to the group in the audience. Sophia, if there's anyone on location that has a question, and then I'll look in chat to see if any questions come through that way.
We're fine for the group. We don't have any question.
Wonderful. And chat, I don't have any questions as of yet, but let's give it about 30 seconds to see if anything comes through. All right, no questions here. So thank you, Professor, on your presentation, and thanks everyone for attending.